every week.
Yeah, I have them.
Every month.
You have them?
I have them every
Okay.
month, they give them to me, yes.
All right.
If you want, do you want me to make copies for the board members?
I think that would be good.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay. All right, just let the record say there was no report for the planning board. All right, Board of Ethics.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, supervisors, budget report, you have the figures in front of you, every month I give them to you. Correspondence, we have a letter that I gave to all of you, a copy, from the Canajahari Little League. Give you a minute to read it. Is this something that this board has done in the past?
Not that I ever remember.
Was there a request here? Because I don't see the end of the, it looks like there was a second page to this.
And I don't have it either.
You don't have the second page?
No, not one on here.
Just have one page.
Well, then it must have slipped through the photocopy. I'll read page 2. With this letter, we are asking for your support by requesting a donation from the town of Palatine to help realize our financial goals and objectives listed above. With your help, we will be able to provide a fun and safe environment for the boys and girls of our area. In addition to our request for donation, we are also asking for a letter of support for our grant application to the Iroquois Pipeline Operating Company. Attached to this letter, please find an example of a letter of support that we have drafted for use by other local municipalities. Please feel free to use or modify this template as needed. To date, we have received letters of support from the Village of Canajahari, Village of Palatine Bridge, Village of Ames, and the Town of Canajahari. We hope that the Town of Palatine is willing to join the other municipalities in support of our efforts. If you are willing, please provide a copy of your letter to the Little League so that we may include it in our grant application submission. Thank you in advance for your time and support. Sincerely, Canajahari Area Little League Board of Directors.
So they're not looking for a monetary number, they're just looking for a letter.
Well, they're looking for a donation.
With this letter, we are asking for your support by requesting a donation from the town of Palatine. That's pretty clear.
They want some money, and they want this to sign the
Well,
letter.
the only downfall with that is I don't see where we can do for one and not the other.
Well,
Because you got the Fort Plain Little League program.
and we're doing the, you know, not that I really truly support any activity for young people in our town, but the problem is, once you start with one youth, like we do both youth centers, and now, you know, if we do this, we should, if it's something we decide to do, we just gotta set aside some more money on a yearly basis to start doing this. I would say we should give them their letter of support, either way. Whether we give them money or not, we should give them a letter of support. I mean, a lot of kids do really well in Little League.
Well, I'm a firm supporter of the Little League program. I coached it for many years.
And if they get the grant will be good money for them, so.
When we get the teen poster, whatever it is, yeah, it's more,
What, the youth center?
Yeah,
1420.
yeah,
There you go.
well, that's a lot.
That's a lot. Your thoughts?
Basically, can we take the town of Palatine taxpayers' money and donate it to these programs? That's the question really that's on the table here. I've heard it come out of board members' mouths, oh, we have lots of money. And I heard at the next meeting that, well, we've got to be very careful, we don't have a lot of money. We gotta settle in here and decide whether we can fund this kind of stuff or not, because this is the shot across the bow that will result in another half a dozen.
No,
This is a little league in Canajoharie. Now, there's a little league in Fort Plain, there's a little league in St. Johnsville, there's a little league in Johnstown. Hey,
Oh, that's just, you can't do for one and not the other.
oh, okay.
But we're not doing for Fort Plain, are we?
Not
No,
that
but
I
that
know
could
of.
be the next one.
Yeah, that could be the next
I
one.
mean,
I mean, if you look at the two schools that Palatine supports, is Canajoharie and Fort Plain.
Yep.
I make a motion, we draft a letter of support to the Canajoharie Little League.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? You want to just not address the money?
If they don't get the grant, they can always come back to us, and if they get the grant,
Well,
then
okay.
they don't need it.
All right.
I mean, that's the way to
Well,
deal with it. We
the
don't
le-
have it in the budget,
The
so.
letter's naive, they didn't name a number, a figure, anything like that, so since you haven't really asked for anything, should be given.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay. We have an offer from Cayman Realty. I wanted to put that in your packet this month. Read it, contemplate what is there, and know that that is a first offer from Cayman Realty. It is not cast in stone, it's a part to start negotiating. Now, it isn't clear enough to me on page 2 exactly what areas are referred to. And I think we also should hear from our attorney as to what is, what the legal complications are with that offer before we consider doing anything with it. So it'll be back at next month's meeting. And in the interim, hopefully, I will have a larger diagram for you of that second page, so we can intelligently discuss the thing. Any other comments on that particular item?
This, even though it's a first shot here, if you look at our 10-year cost plus the easement, it's in excess of $65,000. That puts the price of the building before you even put a nail in it at 85 grand.
If that's accepted by us,
Well,
okay?
even if you don't accept it, let's say you're the super negotiator and you accept 25,000, it puts the building at $75,000. So you're not gonna get away from annual maintenance, because we are not allowed to plow the parking lot that's not ours. It's not like the town can come in and plow the easements and save ourselves money, so we're beholden for them. It's basically like buying a condominium. For the life of the building, we're gonna owe them money. So,
Well, for the life of the town barn, we owe a lot there. It's called wages and machinery.
now let's not mix
and-
apples and oranges here.
And we're not mixing apples and oranges. Our payroll for the town of Palatine is a definite cost. Our equipment is a definite cost. If we acquire another building, there will be a definite cost. Be it our plows doing the plowing or someone else's plows. It is a cost. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm asking you to go home, contemplate that, and come back next month and be ready to discuss it intelligently. That's what I'm asking. There's really no point in taking up board meeting time now, discussing anything.
Because you can't see the map.
We'll get to it. Okay. Handbook and policy manual. We all got an envelope from Mrs. Dunn. And Mrs. Dunn is here to help us through this.
We are not walking through this tonight. That would take hours.
I don't think we have to. Family and Medical Leave Act and Paid Family Leave Act. Are there any choices with that? Wad of papers? That's law, isn't it? We have to adopt it. We don't have a choice there.
Oh, yeah, it just doesn't have to be in your manual necessarily. So I left these out because of the fact that many of them are mandated. I put in the new ones because you as a board haven't passed those yet, and you're required to have certain policies like the harassment, the sexual harassment and harassment policy, as well as the workplace violence policy. We have to pass those new policies in order to get your 9-year insurance. The other ones are mandated already. They're what they are, so we can have a brief reference to them. They're all, I believe they're already in the union contract, so you don't have to have them verbatim in your employee manual.
Does
But I
this-
can add them.
Does this pile of papers have to be handed to a new employee as our manual has
No,
to be?
this was for you to look at and tell me, these are things that I either removed from your previous manual or saw in various samples. You gave me a sample from Montgomery County, or just through research that people have included. Typically, they're not included in full because the policies themselves are just pages and pages long. It's just too much reading. We could put a brief paragraph in, alerting people to it, but what we came up with, between Sean and I, is you really, the only people affected by this, kind of, is you don't have anybody, because everybody's under the union contract, except for you guys
With the
who are
exception of-
elected officials, so, we sort of decided to leave all this stuff out regarding your health insurance, your paid leave, et cetera, because that gives the town board, first of all, the ability to keep your employee manual without changing it every couple of years. You know, when you wanna change your employee leave policy, you don't have to change the whole manual. And second of all, it gives the board, or really Artie, the freedom to contract all of this stuff. You know, maybe in 5 years you wanna have a different paid leave policy than you have today, or different days off, or whatever, different health insurance policy. Right now, we don't have any employees that fit, the description of people that would require these policies, so.
The only area I had a question here was what the board is presently giving Mr. Logan as regards to retirement. If we should be putting something in writing, or if there is something in writing that I'm not familiar with right now that covers the area.
stop me, Art or Sean, if I'm wrong. Some of this comes under the state and not the town. And if you were hired, I mean, he's an elected official,
Mhm.
and so your town,
Automatically in the state retirement system.
he's there, and he has been previously because he worked, I believe that's true, I'm not sure what his work history is. I thought you should have the ability to contract that if you want to contract that. As an elected official, he has certain things that he gets anyway, but I really hesitate to put stuff like that in an employee manual.
Right.
Because I think you have, what's your term for, 4 years?
Yeah.
And then every 4 years, if you wanna change something, you've gotta change your whole manual, which is a pain in the neck, I can tell you that.
Separate deal.
So I feel like you should do that separately. It also matters how somebody's hired, what initial thing they're hired under. So if Art's a longstanding, or anybody is a longstanding employee, it depends on how they were hired 20 years ago. What policy manual or what policy was in place at that time? What was your agreement with that employee? So I chose to leave it out, but I also said, give me feedback. So if you want it in, we can put something in. I just think it's a safer idea to
Separate.
keep it separate and
Separate
contract
deal.
it if you need to contract things. You already have that ability with the superintendent, the highway superintendent anyway, to change, during the budgetary process, to work on his compensation, and that could certainly be part of that.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions on this employee?
Yeah, I have a
involvement policy
question on,
manual? Yes.
I think we brought it up in discussion where right at the top there for the insurance was 15%. Is that,
You're talking about optional policies, so these are not any part of anything.
yeah, I'm talking on the Family
Okay.
Medical Leave Act.
Okay. These
Or,
are,
yeah,
this
optional
is just
policy.
optional, so
Yeah.
this I haven't even really revamped or done anything.
Okay,
So
okay,
what we're hoping to get passed was this.
okay.
Right.
And I wanted you to review these to see if you wanted any of these added particularly, and then we'll hash out the details.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm leaving these out of here. Because you don't have people, you're not dealing with health insurance.
Right,
Because they're all union contracts.
yeah.
Unless you have a separate contract or agreement with the one person currently.
And our
that's
part-timers
affected.
wouldn't be eligible.
Part-timers are not
Not
eligible, which is why this is
But
kind of a unique
the
situation.
safety rules and procedures are very important to us because we don't have anything in place.
So that's why these are here.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right, this is what you want us to go
Yeah.
through.
It's this one that we need passed. Sooner the better. This one, please review and tell me if you need anything. And I've asked everybody, give me stuff by email because then I can draft it. It can be on your desks with a whole, full 10 days or whatever, 7 days to review so that you can actually vote on it by resolution next month.
Okay, I would like to see us pass this employee handbook and policy manual tonight. And then we have an obligation for each employee of the town to attend a 3-hour class.
I'm going to try to shorten it if possible. I'm sorry.
Well,
It
I'm
might be 2.5.
thinking, yeah.
I'll try hard.
But
There's a mandatory training that is for the workplace the harassment
And the
and
workplace.
sexual harassment, because they've added that sexual harassment component to the harassment law. So every employee, regardless of part-time status or not, if you hire some kid to work 2 hours to water plants, that kid has to take it, which is unfortunate. What I'd like to do is train one of you all to do it. Nymere's hoping to get an online version. As of yet, they don't have it, so you're going to be stuck doing it in person.
For now, for right now.
For now.
We need as many of the town employees as possible to attend a 3-hour session. Mrs. Dunn will be doing it for us. I would like to do it in a local restaurant and maybe a half an hour of eating pizza or something. 'Cause 3 hours, you're charming, but 3 hours,
But I'm not sure if I should take offense or not. I can entertain. I can get there. policies,
fine.
or you're not
Yeah.
insured.
Then we have
Yeah.
to have another one for the workplace
And
violence.
so they also suggest that we do workplace violence at the same time, which is a shorter training, but it's mandatory as well. And it's mandatory, meaning 9-year requires it, and the state has now required it. You have to have it by October or
I think it was
November
October, you said.
of this year. And so what we're trying to do is hit the time of year when, I think when you said you're hiring your
Yeah, we're already
seasonal
hiring.
guys, so that they come in right in October, so we can hit everybody at once to avoid having to repeat the training.
I was thinking maybe the first week or second week of next month, and having it in a local restaurant, say, from 1 o'clock on, and give them a half an hour break or so in between, give a little something to drink and eat, and then send them home.
Bill, why don't, that requires you to do it twice then, in this year. I'm trying to save you the cost of the training by doing it one time
You
in
would like to
October.
do it September or October?
Just to get their guys on, unless you know they're the same guys every year and you never have.
You
them
don't know.
every year.
I mean, as far as me, I don't know. I mean,
Well, what would it take to train one of us?
Nothing, you could do it
Well,
today.
yeah, but what you said also is we'll have the availability of something online in the future.
We're hopeful it's not running yet, but
Maybe
Naomi was
if
working on
we
it, yes.
put this off until October or so, maybe there'll be other
I have only
alternatives.
one problem with that with the town. You are a particularly antiquated town, and
Yes,
no
we are.
offense, but you don't have computers available for your town employees to use, and you can't verify necessarily that they're doing the training, and I don't know how the training is gonna be handled. So I don't know if that's going to be a requirement for that, but I'm okay waiting for that as well. It's up
I
it's
can
up to
speak
you.
for other industries where you have one person that will go around amongst the towns and be the one that administers the test or
Nine-year
class or
has
whatever.
traditionally done that. They decided they could no longer feasibly do that, so I went to a training to learn how to do it. But there's nothing magical about it being me. It could be any of you who decides to do that training. So,
The biggest threat we're under here is the insurance company saying, oh gee, we're gonna cancel you. Well, it's been a cakewalk for them pretty much, and we're a relatively clean municipality, no water systems, sewer systems, sidewalks, police and fire. The sexual harassment, they're getting hit pretty hard. So it is going to be an issue that's going to be more and more elevated. I don't feel too threatened if we wait until October to do this. I'm okay with it. I mean, is there another opinion around the table here that
No, it's
sees something different?
Well,
does anybody that works for the town or just the paid employees?
everybody,
Everybody that
Everybody.
does anything for the town.
any volunteer, anybody has to do it.
Yeah.
volunteer.
That's why it's
Elected.
pretty all-encompassing, and you know that the performance is going to be short of the demand. I don't want to be the one that's way short. I want to be up in the middle of the pack somewhere, and we really should. This sexual harassment business needs to be dealt with, needs to be defined.
It's not only that, it's really legally, it's for the town's protection. We have
Yes,
a
it
lot
is.
of, right now, there are already, if you look on the state comptroller's website, there are quite a few, decisions already
Incidents.
made. Yeah, a lot of incidents. We've had some locally and some, school bus barns,
Yep.
some complaints happening. There's a lot of it going around. You can, nationwide, it's everywhere. So I feel like, liability-wise, the town needs to do
We
this.
have to deal with it.
Well, passing this is the first step, and at that point, every employee has to sign this, once they have to read and sign it, and then we need to complete the training by November, so. And I'm happy waiting, if you wanna wait and see what happens as far as the training goes, we can discuss that later in the summer, but at least if we have the policy in place and everyone signs and
And
agrees
everybody
to it.
signs a handbook.
Yeah,
Counselor, I want to thank you for all your work on this with
Thank you.
Sean. It's great.
Thank you.
I think Has everybody, Artie, have you read this through? Because you're gonna have to enforce some of these policies with your guys.
Just real quick,
Okay,
I didn't read it word for word, but I just glanced through it kind of.
okay. And I find about 99% of this perfect. I got a few
No problem.
tweaks, so I think that,
We can do the tweaks now if they're not substantive. If they're substantive, you can't vote on, well, actually, it's a policy manual, not a law, so you probably can vote on it as long as you agree to what they are, and then I'll reprint it and have that.
I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the employee handbook and policy manual of the town of Palatine as presented to us
I so
by our
moved,
attorney.
Second,
so moved.
So moved. Second?
second.
Sean with a second. Any further discussion?
yeah, I believe in the statement of intent on page 3, which is excellent about that. I think there should also be some mention that an employee of the town of Palatine services to the residents that pay their salary. I think there should be some mention of that in there. And then on page 4, under standards of conduct, the only word I had there was the word boisterous. In boisterous and disruptive activity in workplace, I think that's kind of a subjective word. I wouldn't mind disruptive activity in the workplace, but the word boisterous is kind of like up for discussion. I don't know how you feel about that, Counselor, or maybe we can clarify, but that was.
Did you use a model for this?
I had so many models, I can't tell you where that particular verbiage
Yeah.
came from, but I can tell you this, if it ever came to litigation, we would have to define boisterous.
Okay,
At this point, boisterous can be understood because most of us have seen boisterous behavior, and if it's not universally understood, and there's a discrepancy or disagreement, and someone complains about it, at that point it becomes, I mean, that's what case law is all about. So
well, that was
no,
my only thing that I
yeah,
saw. The
okay.
other ones are pretty clear cut. I mean, violation of personal policies and all that is just clear cut. I just thought that was the only one I saw in
It's
there.
sort of like horseplay, anytime you use a swimming pool, nobody knows what that is exactly, but
Well, a lot, and I'm also thinking this applies a lot to the guys in the highway, the garage. If they yell across the thing, yelling at the guy to go pick up lunch or something, someone complains that's boisterous, how do how do you say that's not? And that, I just, I don't wanna get into one of these things where we give someone leverage to use something that's on the standards of conduct against somebody, that's all. The rest of the ones are pretty clear cut. But those were my only two,
Okay.
cause I really think that the employees of the town should know that they work for the residents who pay their salary, and I think that should be clear for them. That was my only clarification I thought.